All right, we are live.
Isak effing Paredes.
Yeah, he'll be fun to talk about.
Everybody always says, "Oh, no, why you like Isak Paredes?" Because you're not patient enough. That's why.
I was gonna say because he does one thing,
Does the thing,
right?
the number one type of batted ball. He does it every single time.
Welcome to Hacks and Jacks. It's Memorial Day weekend, May 25th. We're recording live here on youtube.com/pitcherlist. And Scott, I'm Brett Ford. I'm here with Scott Chu, senior fantasy analyst on PitcherList. Scott, how you doing this weekend? It's a holiday weekend. Hope it's going well for you.
Oh yeah, I work for a bank, so this is a very holiday weekend. Of course, you think about those that served, gave the ultimate sacrifice. And then while you're doing that, you take a beautiful day off with weather that is finally starting to break here in Michigan. So we finally got back above like the 65-degree threshold, which is nice.
Nice. Yeah, we're hoping to get out of this rain here in upstate New York. We'll see how things transpire tomorrow. We're having some people over doing a little bit of smoked meats and snacky snacks. So it'll be a good day.
Sounds beautiful.
Well, let's talk about some baseball. We had a ton happen this week. Last week was kind of the Prospect Palooza, Fabapalooza type week with so many different names coming up. But we've got some stragglers this week with some exciting names returning from the IL, and some big moves on the top 150 hitters list. We'll get to all that later. Let's jump right into news and notes. Well, it's been a long wait for fantasy managers, but finally, after investing in the draft and waiting so long, we finally have our fantasy favorite back in action this week as Matt Vierling is back for the Tigers. No, just kidding. It's Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna Jr. Made his return on Friday. Homered in his season debut. And Scott, how excited are you for Acuna's return?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, you love baseball when he's playing. You love that he came back, hit 2 home runs. Like very first pitch home run was, of course, a lot of fun. I think the thing I've been trying to watch really since his return is how is the lineup going to shake out? Who's the odd man out? What's going to happen? Right off the bat, if you had been streaming Eli White, he's the first obvious odd man out. He hasn't actually gotten a start at all since Ronald Acuna Jr. has come back. So, you shouldn't have been that invested in Eli White anyway, but he is out. He's not in the lineup. I don't expect him to be in the lineup. I think the thing that I'm really hoping for, and this was starting to happen before Ronald Acuna Jr.'s return, but actually Marcell Ozuna and Matt Olson had been pitched around just constantly all season long. Like Marcell Ozuna's walking like 50% of the time. Like it's not 50, but it is 20.4% of the time he's been walking, because why pitch to these two guys, right? The rest of the lineup had been very up and down. Austin Riley's been struggling. So it was like, screw it. So a couple other things this thing did, besides giving Marcell Ozuna and Matt Olson another guy to actually drive in, the Braves have just really struggled to find a guy to take that leadoff spot in Acuna's absence. So they needed someone to come in and just be a leadoff guy. The other thing it did was 2 struggling bats for Atlanta have now been pushed to the bottom third of the lineup. That's Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris second. Both of them have struggled on and off this year. Obviously for both of them, it's more struggle than it is success. They've found some ways, to contribute at times. Over the last week, Michael Harris II has been a positive contributor of sorts, mostly from stolen bases from a fantasy perspective. Both these guys, though, do get pushed down further in the lineup. And if you're in a 10 or a shallow 12-team league, it's just that much harder to hold these two. So I'm not saying go ahead and cut them for anything, but there may be something on your wire that is more enticing now than Ozzie Albies and Michael Harris II. Not just because they're in the bottom third of the order, though, but also because both of them have been a lot more average than good over the last season and a half or so. So those are the two guys. I had a feeling they'd just get pushed down in the order even more with Acuna Jr. coming back. They're giving other guys chances to hit high in the order. So if Drake Baldwin hasn't been scooped up in your league, he's still hitting second. He's hit second each of the last 2 days. he's someone who's very interesting. But yeah, this lineup is a whole lot deeper with a Ronald Acuna Jr. and in truth, just with an actual leadoff hitter for them, because Harris and Albies and Verdugo and the other guys they've tried there just haven't worked out. So the lineup should be better. They're going to be tougher to stream against. And then those two guys, Albies and Michael Harris, second. I'm not saying you have to cut them, but it's one step closer, right? Keep an eye on the wire. It's one step closer as they both move to the bottom third of the order.
We'll talk about another outfielder who returned this week who is going to shift his lineup, and that's Chicago Cubs outfielder Ian Happ. He'll move back into his leadoff role, and he'll bump Pete Crow Armstrong out of that leadoff role where he was so successful over the past couple weeks. How does that impact both Happ and PCA going forward?
Well, Happ should be a good source of runs. He hasn't been very good since coming back from the IL, but I chalk that up just to normal ups and downs of being a major league ball player. Happ, he'll be an everyday leadoff guy. He's going to score a bunch of runs. He's got 20-ish home run power. He might steal a couple bases here and there, but really it's the runs scored thanks to his OBP. He walks plenty, so that'll be good. And then Pete Crow Armstrong, look, you're riding the wave. I don't mean that in the sense of like Pete Crow Armstrong is not good. What I'm saying is we all know that he's probably not a top 5 hitter in baseball. All right. The question is, what is he actually? Right. So I just saw, Yahoo had some of their experts come out and collab with some other guys like Todd Zola, and they did a draft for the rest of 2025. And I don't think I was that surprised to see Pete Crow Armstrong go in the second round of that. So that was for a 12-team league. I don't know if I would take Pete Crow Armstrong in the second round of a draft. I think there was an interesting article that came out recently. I wish I remembered the exact place. It said, sell high on Pete Crow Armstrong. And here's the thing with that. Like, who's trying to buy Pete Crow Armstrong right now? Right? Like, you may be a big believer in Pete Crow Armstrong, but he's been a top 3 hitter in fantasy baseball, right? And I think most folks in competitive leagues are going to have a hard time selling high, quote unquote, based on his current value. I think you'd have a hard time getting another top 10 hitter for him. It's just, you're not going to get the type of return. In theory, it makes a lot of sense to sell high because you're like, look, this profile does not speak to hitting 283 all season. It's a lot of fly balls. And as I've said on this show many, many times, when you hit a bunch of fly balls, you're going to have a low batting average because if your ball doesn't leave the park, it's an out. So he doesn't hit many line drives. Well, he hits like an average amount of line drives. He hits everything up in the air. He's got power, but not like extreme power, right? Like even in this breakout season, his average exit velocity is below 90 miles an hour, right? I mean, you can be very successful with an average exit velocity below that. We'll talk about other guys who have it much, much lower than that and can find a way to hit home runs. But with Pete Crow Armstrong, I don't expect the Cubs offense to be this good all season long. I expect it to be good, but not like elite. And I think he will settle something closer to like a top 25 to top 30 hitter. As opposed to just like an overall top 5, top 10. So he's going to, as Esteval kind of says in the comments, because him and I have actually been talking about a trade for Pete Crow Armstrong in a dynasty league. He's a tough guy to move because you have to shop it around. You don't know what people, everybody's going to have a very different read on Pete Crow Armstrong. I'm actually going to tell you not to sell, even though I think this is the time his value is highest, only because I don't think you're going to have any buyers. I think people are going to give you a return that's probably equivalent to the guy Pete Crow Armstrong will be for the rest of the season, which is like a top 20 to top 30 hitter. And why? Like, why make that move, right? When Pete Crow Armstrong has been this good, and frankly, maybe he is this good, right? I mean, probably not, but maybe. So I don't love moving him right now because it's just going to be tough. Now, if you've got like a Cubs homer in your league who's willing to give you a top 15 hitter for Pete Crow Armstrong, I would strongly suggest you take a look at that. I just think that's probably not likely for the leagues that you're in.
And I did make a joke about it earlier, but Matt Vierling really did come back from the IL this week for your Detroit Tigers, Scott. Vierling, an infielder, outfielder, kind of utility guy. Frankly, I'm not sure what his eligibility is on all sites, but certainly a versatile, piece for the Tigers. Does he have any fantasy impact in standard 12 teamers, maybe 15 teamers?
Well, so he started twice. He actually led off against a lefty. So I think he'll still have some value there against lefties. I think it makes Kerry Carpenter even less likely to start against lefties. He was already very unlikely to start against lefties. But the emergence of Javi Baez in the outfield has really complicated things for the Tigers in terms of guys they have coming up. Not just Matt Vierling, who he plays third base. I think eventually he'll fall into a platoon with Zach McKinstry, who's really playing kind of out of his shoes right now. I had a big home run the other day. So with McKinstry, I think eventually they'll have a platoon with McKinstry and Vierling. But then you've also got another guy who's going to be coming back somewhat soon. And that's Parker Meadows. Now, Parker Meadows was originally scheduled to be the center fielder for this team, but you can't take that away from Javi Baez right now. Look, this team loves Javi Baez. I'm not talking about the management, like the actual team. Those guys love El Mago. They love playing with Javi Baez. They love that he has found success in the outfield for them. It's been a great piece for this team. So both those guys. So Vierling, you probably weren't counting on a 12-team league anyway. He's on wires. Will probably stay on wires. But I do expect some questions on what to do with Parker Meadows. And the question's going to be, can he even get himself into a full platoon? Right? Like, that's honestly a question now for Parker Meadows. How do they find a way to platoon him, get him in the lineup every single day? And who goes down? Like, even if they send down, Justin Henry Malloy's only playing 2 or 3 times a week, right? So where's the opportunity for Parker Meadows, who I think coming into the season, we hoped would be like a 20 home run, 20 stolen base guy. I don't know you're going to get that kind of, a lot of it had to do with opportunity. That opportunity has sort of gone away in the short term, at least, due to the production of Javi Baez, which I never expected to say in my whole life, that Parker Meadows would be impacted by the strong play of Javi Baez. But here we are. I think that's a reality, at least in the short term, right? Eventually, I think things could settle and Parker Meadows can find himself on the large side of the platoon. But if you're in a 12-team league, I don't think you can wait. I think Parker Meadows can land on your wire for now. And that pains me to say, but I think that's where Parker Meadows has to go in a standard 10 or 12-team league, because we just don't know enough about the playing time he's going to get. And there's probably other options in the outfield. Like, it's hard to roster platoon guys, like Kerry Carpenter being like the premier platoon outfield bat you can hold. Parker Meadows ain't that good. So, like, he's good, but he's not like Kerry Carpenter, elite platoon bat good. So I think it's going to be tough to roster him outside of 15 teamers.
We'll move on to a couple of We'll move on to a couple of guys going on the IL this week. We'll start in West Sacramento, or just California, I guess, if you will. The Athletics infielder Gio Urshela is headed to the IL. Does that open up any sort of playing time for that kind of logjam out there with Kurtz and Soderstrom and Rooker and Andujar and all the other, relevant to semi-relevant bats up in the Athletics lineup?
I mean, those guys were all playing pretty much every day right now anyway. The guy who's been interestingly benched more often than not, just of late, right? So the A's have played 3 left-handed starters in their last 4 games. And it's Lawrence Butler who sat twice. So Butler is a guy who really exploded on the scene last year and has been very up and down this season, I'll say. Now he's coming off basically like his best fantasy week. Although I wonder if that's because he didn't play against lefties, right? So I think it doesn't necessarily mess up that many things in this outfield. I think they're going to keep doing what they were doing, but it is worth noting that Lawrence Butler has been just miserable against left-handed pitching. He has a 13 WRC plus. That translates to an OPS. That's 424. Lawrence Butler's OPS against left-handers. He's striking out almost 40% of the time. I wonder if he stays in a platoon a little bit, which doesn't necessarily create more playing time for the rest of that roster. But what it might do is give a couple more games in the outfield to somebody. I mean, maybe not Rooker. He started like once in the outfield somewhat recently in right field, but goodness, it's an ugly outfield with Soderstrom and Rooker out there in the corners. This team has just sort of like said, I don't care about defense at all. Obviously the other name, Nick Kurtz, is going to play every day now. He came out of the game today, Nick Kurtz, with a hip injury in the long game. And we don't know enough about it to know if he's going to, or in the Saturday game, he missed Sunday's game. We don't know enough to say that he's going to miss significant time. I am very happy to see that Nick Kurtz has really kind of found some power. We've been waiting for the power. We knew it would come, but sometimes it can take a little bit for a young guy to find power because they're just starting with contact and decisions. The strikeouts are still there, but hey, 4 home runs in 5 games. You can't really argue with that. And a couple walks. So that was big. He had not been walking at all leading up to these last couple games. And finally, he found some walks in his last few. So I think Kurtz might be turning a corner, but what I'm really watching, as I mentioned in the Reddit AMA, is I'm watching his ability to just keep making contact. So we've seen his zone contact rising over the course of the season. We need it to stay up there. Like we don't want this to just be the top of his zone contact and have it come back down again, because you can't really just like stop at 82% zone contact and start falling into the 70s again. It will just lead to a far too volatile profile to be super interested at first base in 10 or 12 teamers. But if he keeps making some decent contact, we know what's going to happen when Nick Kurtz makes contact. It's going to hit it hard. It's going to be loud, right? We know that. The question is, how often can he consistently make contact? That's what he's going to have to do. It's something he was not doing. The strikeout rate is gotten a little bit better of late. I'm watching the strikeout rate. I'm watching the zone contact rate. But if you've been holding him, I mean, heck, you're going to keep holding him. If he hasn't been scooped up, if someone cut him during a very long for like 20 stretch or whatever it was, I think that's a guy you might scoop just to see what happens, but also keep an eye on this hip flexor injury. I would hate to see that kind of cut him down when he was finally finding a groove with the power.
Yeah, Uncle Ted in the chat had made a great comparison here. He's Matt Olson. Like I really kind of agree with that. The Matt Olson evaluation. Now, is he Matt Olson 2022, where he hit 45 home runs and batted 270 and was an amazing bat, or is he Matt Olson from a year before that or the year after that, where he still hit 30 home runs but he batted like 212 or whatever it was?
I think it's a fair question to wonder if Matt Olson is 2023 Matt Olson, right? Like 54 home runs a year. I don't know if Matt Olson will ever be that good again, but Matt Olson with the A's outside of the rabbit ball year would hit 25 to 30 home runs in a full season. He had that one in 2019 and 2021. He had a whole bunch more than that, but we could see, I think, as soon as, maybe even this year, the type of guy who can be a 25 home run threat as he continues to grow and potentially become more than that.
We'll shift to the East Coast, where Boston third baseman Alex Bregman is headed to the IL. And Scott, this has opened up an opportunity for another highly touted prospect out of the Boston farm system, and former very high draft. I think he was selected 5th overall. Marcelo Meyer was called up on Saturday and made his debut against the Orioles. What do you know about Meyer, and should fantasy managers be excited?
I do think they should be excited. I think he's going to be their very first option at third base. I think they like him more than they like Abraham Toro. I think, they don't have a lot of options at third base anyway, because they just don't seem interested in having Rafael Devers go over there. Meyer is probably the most raw of the 3 top prospects that the Red Sox had, because they, coming into the season, they had Roman Anthony, they had Christian Campbell, and they had Marcelo Meyer. I think Meyer, he had 2 hits today. I think that, nice to see him get some hits early. I don't think he's somebody in your league needs Marcelo Meyer. Somebody. The question is it you? Right. So Meyer should get third base eligibility in Yahoo leagues sometime halfway through, like next week. I think that he'll get third base eligibility in other leagues, and maybe not till the end of June, as the Red Sox probably plan to move him around just a little bit between shortstop, third base, all those positions. So third base is a tough position, and you should grab Marcelo Mayer if you've been looking for a third baseman, especially in Yahoo leagues where he'll get that soon. Now, look, lots of rookies have come up this year. And what we've been reminded is that it's hard to be a rookie in Major League Baseball. It's really hard. Now, Meyer has had some decent time in the minor leagues. He's been in the system since 2021. He started in A ball and or double A in 2023, was there all through last year. He's been in triple A this year. So he's got a bit more seasoning than some of the prospects we've seen come up, but look, it's tough. You should grab him if you need a third baseman because you probably don't have a lot of other options you're looking at anyway. However, keep your expectations kind of reasonable here. I don't expect him to be a huge batting average asset as he comes up. I don't expect him to be a huge power asset. I think what you're hoping for is a mix of power and speed. I think if he had a full season right now, he could be a guy who goes like 15 to 20 home runs, 15 to 20 stolen bases, depending on how quickly he kind of picks up the game. There's also going to be the question of, will he do enough? We know that Bregman is probably out for a while. He's, I forget exactly what the injury is, but it's his quad. They think it's a little bit serious. Hopefully he's back by the All-Star break. I know it's going to be at least a couple of weeks. The question then, of course, is like, what happens after, right? We're pretty sure Bregman comes back after the All-Star break. Will there still be a spot for will there still be a spot for Mayer? Maybe, right? Trevor Story has really struggled. Lots of things going on there, but I think in the short term, you scoop him and you hope for the best. It was the biggest thing that I think was sort of nice is Marcelo Mayer's a lefty, and he did get the start against the lefty in his very first game. So that's another one. I know it doesn't look like he's in a platoon to start. So now you're just where, I always talk about the three kinds of risk. You've got injury risk, you've got playing time risk, and you've got, and performance risk. And now we're only dealing with performance risk. That's where we want to be. A guy's coming in, he's getting full-time playing time. He's not he's not coming off some big injury. That's the type of rookie I like to buy into.
Now we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about all the other prospects that came up this week, along with Marcelo Mayer. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. We're talking hitters on pitcher list. Brett Ford here with Scott Chu. Scott, we talked about Marcelo Mayer before the break. Let's talk about all the other prospects that came up this week, including a guy who isn't making his major league debut, but is back with the Major League Ball Club and Chicago Cubs infielder Matt Shaw.
Yeah, so Shaw, we talked. He was talked about a lot when the season started. He's got sort of a weird stance, a weird presence in the box. Really, the thing about him was it's not that he struggled with strikeouts or anything. It's the quality of contact that was just not there for Matt Shaw. Does not hit the ball that hard to begin with. So the question was like, hey, can this guy be successful? Matt Shaw certainly has been successful so far. Now they've got him buried at the bottom of the lineup, but because the Cubs lineup has been so good, that's okay. There's still production to be had down there. He took some walks in his original tour of duty. He's taken just one walk since he's been back, but I mean, he hasn't been back for that long, I think. And he's barely struck out at all. I think this is he's probably already been scooped in your leagues, but I do think there's a decent power speed combo here. And again, at a position that's just been so tough in third base. So with Matt Shaw, I think I'll say this. If you're looking for a third baseman and you're in a shallower league and both Mayer and Shaw are on the bench or on the wire, I will take Shaw first. Even though Mayer has probably got the higher ceiling in terms of overall prospect, if I need a guy performing now, especially in a redraft league, I think I like Shaw just a bit better. I think he's got more potential this season. Again, long-term in Dynasty, it's Mayer for sure, I think. But in a redraft league this year, I'm gonna take the guy who's already hitting at the major league level, even if it's just for a week or so. In Matt Shaw, play it a little bit safer. And again, He's in a good lineup. I think both of them are going to hit in the bottom third of the order, at least for now. But with Matt Shaw, I think he's probably the one I start with.
Well, we'll glance over a couple more names who got called up. Texas outfielder Alejandro Osuna, Athletics outfielders Denzel Clark and Logan Davidson, and then Kansas City Royals infielder Nick Lofton also got the call this week. Mostly deeper league considerations, right? None of those guys are really relevant in 12 or 15 teamers yet.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're, to varying degrees useful for a varying number of things. As mentioned in the chat, Robert Hassel III as well. These are deep league flyers for now. There's just too many, especially in like the outfield, which isn't all of these guys, but it's several of them. There's just too many options in a 10 or a 12 team league to need to dip this deep into the well. Now in a much deeper format. Yeah, sure. Go for it. Not Lofton as much. I have really no expectations for him. Like, sure, he's like the fourth best prospect for the Royals, but like the Royals don't really have much of a system. So that's why. Hassel is somewhat interesting, I think, just because, he was at, one time he was still a mildly heralded prospect. He was a more heralded prospect. He's playing full time. This Washington Nationals lineup is just hilariously left-handed. So, everybody's like a lefty or a switch, but with Hassel, I worry a little bit, just about his ability to find power in the major leagues. He wasn't a big source of power in the minors at all. So, can he do enough in the majors to really keep your attention in our 10 or 12 team league? Hopefully the one thing I think he will be able to do is steal, because the Nats just let dudes run all the time. And Hassel has a bit of speed, not a ton of it, but enough, because you don't need like any, right? Like I'll always make this example. The Nats let anybody run, right? Jesse Winker had 8 stolen bases in his entire long career, and they let him steal like 13 or something in a month. It was ridiculous. So he's a guy who's somewhat interesting, but again, all of these are flyers in deep leagues, really more dynasty focused than anything else.
Yeah, I will say I think I like Hassel the best out of that group, just because I think he has staying power. I know that he was a part of the Juan Soto trade along with James Wood coming over from the Padres, and I think he has a chance to beat out somebody like an Alex Call or a Jacob Young if he can prove that he can get on base and run similar to those guys. So I think that Hassel has a chance to maybe stick on the major league roster more than some of the other guys. Maybe Denzel Clark for the Athletics, just because of his defense. But as far as bats go, I think Hassel has the best chance there.
No, yeah, I agree. I think they really want this young guy to come in and take over in center field and be the center fielder long term that they've been hoping for. He's getting an opportunity with I think the other major center field candidates all hurt right now, and Dylan Cruz and Jacob Young. So he's certainly going to get an extended look in center field. I think he's the best option they have right now. He was the third option. Now he's the best option thanks to those injuries, and he's got a chance to, I think, earn a full-time job out there, even with Dylan Cruz and Young coming back. In case you're curious, I think Young is the one who probably has the most to lose in all this, but you don't really care because he was just like an NL only speed guy.
Well, we talked about the prospects who came up. Let's talk about a couple guys who got sent down. And the first one is a little bit disappointing for me because I thought that maybe he'd stick around for the Cubs, and that's catcher Moises Ballesteros. He was sent down earlier this week, even with Jacob Amaya getting injured. So I thought that was a little bit curious. Scott, what are we looking at with the Cubs catcher situation behind Carson Kelly?
Yeah, they've had a lot of production out of the catcher spot this season, and now it appears they're going with this, sort of full platoon kind of thing. So the only other catcher on the roster right now is Reese McGuire. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google him, whatever. But yeah, I think the one thing we'll see is Carson Kelly get a little bit more run here. He was not, I think Miguel Amaya is the more interesting one long term if someone was going to break out in that catcher spot. But Carson Kelly's a decent streamer. The Cubs don't have a terrible schedule coming up. So yeah, sure. And when he's playing, he's batting fourth or fifth. So hard to find catchers who do that, but he's also very part-time. So please keep that in mind. He may get a little bit extra playing time without Amaya on the roster. It's just him and Reese McGuire. Even though McGuire's a lefty and Kelly's a righty, I think they're going to ride Kelly a bit more just because he's a better offensive player. And this lineup, probably appreciates that. So that's what'll happen. He continues to be a streamer only, though.
And a couple other names that got sent down. These were curious to me because it appears to be a trend for some of these teams to take some of their more trusted or longer tenured veterans and send them down if they have options. So both the Athletics with outfielder JJ Bleday and the Chicago White Sox with infielder Andrew Vaughn, both sending down guys who have been up for quite a while back to AAA to work on some things. I just thought that was interesting. Do you think that's maybe a trend that teams are turning to their younger bats earlier, or is it just kind of coincidence that two struggling veterans are getting demoted?
Well, it's worth noting these are on bad teams, right? So I believe, these are both last place in their division teams, right? With the White Sox and the A's. So they've got nothing to lose. They're not really playing for anything. With the White Sox sending down Vaughn, I guess it's to get a little bit more playing time for Miguel Vargas, but I mean, I'm not sure it was really that necessary to do. They've got a couple guys maybe performing a little better than you'd expect, but why not just let Josh Rojas go or something? That didn't make any sense to me. I don't see what at all Andrew Vaughn has to gain in the minor leagues. I thought it was weird because we saw this with Jake Berger earlier this year, which is a bit more of an extreme example because Berger's 30. But Andrew Vaughn's he's old to be in AAA and he really shouldn't be down there. There's nothing really for him to gain. If you hadn't cut him, there's no format really where you need to hold Andrew Vaughn. He's just been awful. This whole team, this team is lost. As far as JJ Bleday, look, Bleday was at his best is like a poor man's Ian Happ, right? Gets on base, makes some contact, and ideally is hitting in a good spot in the order. He's not getting on base. He's not really making much contact. And he's not, obviously he's not even in the order anymore. So there's not enough ceiling to kind of hold on to Bleday outside of maybe a dynasty league because there aren't other options on the wire. There's just no value in dropping him. But in a redraft league, he's gone. I'm not even sure I'd watch list him. Maybe in a deep OBP league, I'm watch listing JJ Bleday because he can contribute in that format. But he's limited power, limited speed. He was really an opportunity guy, and he just couldn't keep the opportunity.
We'll be back after this.
The Athletics just don't care about defense, right? I'm surprised they haven't just thrown Kurtz out there too. Just like Kurtz and Stradivarius and Rooker all be in the outfield. Who cares? The A's don't. They just have the Athletics just don't care about defense. And Bleday was going to be there because he was one of their best outfield defenders by default. They let him go down. So whatever.
We'll be back after this break. We'll talk Scott's top 150 hitters list coming up right after this. All right. Reorganize my windows real quick. Make sure that. So like an idiot, I drafted Marcelo Meyer in TGFBI. So I've just been holding on to him since, March. So I'm
like a genius.
Well, he saved me $300 in Fab, which is wonderful. But we'll see. I don't know.
I put a bid on him. It wasn't close to that amount. It was just to keep everyone honest kind of bid.
Yeah, I hear that. All right. So is it worth noting Tier 1 at all?
No.
No.
Well, Bobby Witt Jr. is not in it anymore, but I
That's
think
what
I
I
did
mean.
that.
Like, is it worth noting that or?
I think I did that the week before, a week or two before.
No, that's the first time I noticed it. That's maybe he moved from 3rd to 5th, and I didn't notice that.
Oh,
Like,
you know what? He did move from 3rd to 5th, but it may also be that I did because I moved him. I cut the. I might have
cut
done
the
it
deal.
before because like Judge and Otani are just that much better than everybody
Right.
else.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's semantics at this point, right? Like,
I'll mention that I benched him like all week in favor of Zach Neto in a points league.
no, you didn't.
I
Good
did.
for you.
I did.
Good for you.
It's
All
a
right,
really dumb. It's a league with really dumb rules, but I totally
those are
did.
the best leagues, though. I love the niche, like the novelty rules leagues, just because
You have to
it's
start an actual DH, and it's a freaking 25 start threshold to get position eligibility. You know how many guys actually start
Hold on, wait,
25 times as a DH?
I was gonna say
25.
how many teams and how many like empty DH spots are there?
Like everybody's got a DH, but like it actually adds a bunch of value to guys like Shohei Otani because you need a freaking DH.
Right. As if Otani needed value added. But
Yeah.
anyway, like yeah, it's crazy.
Like I'm looking for guys that have DH eligibility. Like, oh shoot, like Seiya Suzuki's been a star, not just because he performs, because I can DH him.
That's amazing. I love niche leagues like that.
It's the only reason I still do a DH ranking.
That's funny.
Because like I was like, Nick, there's no way these leagues still exist. He goes, well, I'll just do it anyway. And then I got in one and I was like, God damn
it. I love that. All right, let's jump in. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. We're talking hitters on Pitcher List. I'm Brett Ford at Fade That Man on socials, and I'm here with Scott Chu. Scott, tell them where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, so you can find for my articles. Actually, just did I covered for the great Ben Palmer. Did the hitters to start and avoid for this week. Looked at a couple offenses that are either good for streaming or bad for it. So that's over on the site. It's supposed to be Wednesday. Lately, it's been more Thursday than Wednesday. You got the hitter list that comes out over on the site. Fridays, I have the Reddit AMA. So we get probably about 150 questions. Every weekend. I answer them all weekend. In fact, after this, I'll probably try to fill in some of the ones that I missed. So that's always a great discussion. And of course, you can find me on Blue Sky at scottchu.pitcherlist.com or over on the Twitter at if the Chu fits, if the CHU fits.
Well, let's jump right into your top 150 hitters list this week. And we've made some adjustments in tier 1. Is that more of an indictment or is that more of an endorsement of the two studs who've ascended?
Well, like the easy answer is just like because Aaron Judge and Shohei Otani have just been so much better than everybody else. Like they are clearly a tier of their own to me. But a couple other things going on, right? Like in tier 2, you've got Corbin Carroll, who's sort of kind of pushing to be in tier 1. I don't think he's there yet because Otani and Judge just do everything so well. But the other thing that happened is I did drop Bobby Witt just a couple of spots. He now moves to 5th behind Corbin Carroll and Kyle Tucker. And that's for 2 reasons. Number 1, tier 2 is nasty good. Like the top really 3 tiers in the fantasy baseball hitter world right now is just insanely deep. Like Juan Soto's 8th, right? Jose Ramirez is 6th. Like this is just insanely. We've got 2 guys who are probably going to hit 50 home runs this year. That's the only reason there's these other guys aren't in a first tier sort of scenario because we have 2 guys who are so good compared to the other guys who are just regular elite. But with Bobby Witt, it's less about Bobby Witt's skills overall and more about the fact that his skills are, what we saw last year is probably closer to a ceiling than a floor with the power speed combo. And also that the Royals offense has just really struggled. We're seeing a couple signs of life. Vinny Pasquantino hitting over 300 for the month of May, but they're just such a lackluster offense that there's only so far the fighting Bobby Witts can go in terms of scoring runs. So he's got to move down a little bit because I don't think he's going to be able to match the counting stats he put up last year, not because of him, but just because the team around him is no good. Jonathan India has just panned out very poorly as a potential leadoff hitter. That was supposed to be something that they're really locked in for them. Vinny Pasquantino isn't walking at all, which was sort of like his hallmark when he came up into the league, walking 10% of the time. He's not doing that. So it's hard to get Bobby Witt Jr. all the way around. Sal Perez is in Maybe not the longest slump we've seen from him in the last 5 years, but certainly the steepest. So just a lot of things going wrong for the Royals offense. And as a result, I got to move him down because things are certainly not, going poorly for the D-backs or the Cubs, which is where Corbin Carroll and Kyle Tucker are, right? Am I saying you should trade straight up right now Bobby Witt Jr. for one of those two guys? Maybe not, right? Especially because he's a shortstop and you may need that position more than you need an outfielder. But if we were doing a draft today, I think it'd be hard for me to pass on Corbin Carroll or Kyle Tucker even if Bobby Witt was still on the board.
Well, we'll move down the list a little bit, down to tier 6, and discuss a trio of first basemen who continue to rise at number 47, 48, and 49, respectively. We have Cody Bellinger, Spencer Torkelson, and Paul Goldschmidt, all three up at least 16 positions this week.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about how first base is basically twice as deep now as we thought it would be on draft day. Now, Torkelson's the only one that continues to kind of creep up. I think we've seen some drop-offs from guys like Soderstrom and Manzardo, who in the first couple weeks were moving up right with Torque. Torque isn't going to be a batting average guy. Again, hits a ton of fly balls. A lot of them are going to fall into gloves, but a bunch of them keep leaving the yard. He's showing the power consistently week over week. He's giving you at least a couple dingers. So I think Torkelson is going to push for that 35 home run mark, even with the bad batting average. It's going to work out, especially with the extra walks. Like, too early yet, but like maybe like a Kyle Schwarber light. You know what I mean? Like not a 40 home run guy, but a 30 home run guy who with these walks can put up a decent OBP. Again, not as extreme as Schwarber, but I think you've got that kind of profile going on. With Cody Bellinger, I mean, we knew that the fit in Yankee Stadium was amazing for Cody Bellinger. I think we knew that there was upside, and we're finally starting to see it after a very shaky start to the year. Cody Bellinger's a tough guy to track because StatCast just like is never going to like him. He doesn't hit the ball super hard. He doesn't really do anything particularly well, but the way he does everything kind of works out to be a well above average player. So, I mean, I don't know how much higher Cody Bellinger could go. I guess he could find himself like closer to 40 than 50, but that's probably about it for him. And then Paul Goldschmidt, like he's kind of just changed his game. He's smacking line drives all over the place. He's not the guy he was. He's not a 30 home run threat anymore, but man, the ratios are real good, and putting the ball in play when you play for the Yankees and hit behind guys like Aaron Judge, a lot of good things happen. So he's moved up quite a bit. I mean, he was down, I think at his lowest, he was like a little bit behind 100. So over the course of the season, he's moved up about 50 points. So yeah, there's still life in him yet, even though he's a slightly different hitter than he was in his prime.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird transition here for him last year with kind of the way he struggled. But it seems like those adjustments that he's made to kind of maybe lean towards contact more than power now has really benefited him in year 2 with the Yankees.
Yeah, and the other thing that's happened there is he's really sort of taken over. I mean, he always was pretty much a full-time player, but now he's even more full-time as the Yankees seem to have tired of Ben Rice a little bit. So Ben Rice is sitting about twice, maybe 3 times a week now. Even though when he plays, they have him hit like second and third. They also sit him like every other day. Partially, I think just because Ben Rice is not a good defender, he's got to be a DH, and they're using Jason Dominguez in that role. They're using, they're kind of moving everybody in the lineup around DH. But yeah, so with Ben Rice kind of moving down a little, down in the pecking order in New York, Paul Goldschmidt has found himself with that rock solid job. He's actually even been leading off this week, 3 times in his last 5 starts. So some interesting stuff for Paul Goldschmidt.
We'll move on to another corner infielder, this one in Houston, at leading off tier 8. He's ranked 62 this week, up 11 spots. It's Isaac Paredes, and he's made some good use of those Crawford boxes. Scott, what do we think of Paredes?
I mean, if there's one guy that me and the great Kyle Bland just love to death, it is Isaac Paredes. I talk about him all the time. Look, the best batted ball in the major leagues, and really in every league, in every baseball park ever, go to Japan, go to Korea, go to Little League. It's all the same. the best type of fly ball is the best type of batted ball is the pulled fly ball, right? It's got the best OPS. It's got the best everything. So it's not necessarily the best batting average because line drives can have better batting average, but whatever. The pulled fly ball is the best batted ball in baseball. It's the one you want the most of, and nobody does it as much as Isaac Paredes. No one is actually that close to doing it as much as Isaac Paredes. He's gone to a park that, is tailor-made for a hitter like him to just hit a bunch of pulled fly balls and have him leave the park. Look, StatCast is always going to hate Isaac Paredes because he doesn't hit the ball that hard. But as we've talked about this on the show many times, Isaac Paredes only has to hit the ball about 340 feet. And again, 340 feet to center is an out in every park. I'm pretty sure it's an out in college and minor. It's an out everywhere, right? To center field. But to left, it's a home run basically everywhere, right? So batted ball direction matters a lot. And for most players, it's very random, but not Isaac Paredes. He's a pulled fly ball machine. He's going to be, I think, there were folks that had gotten kind of down on him from his slow start, and he did not look good as a Cub last season, but Isaac Paredes really locked into the number 2 spot in that lineup right now. And he's just going to keep hitting these home runs, folks. He's going to hit 30 home runs this year. We saw him do it once before. We saw it in 2023, only 19 last season, but he's already at 11 through 51 games. And it's only just now that the heat's getting turned up. It's getting hotter in the summers down in Texas right now. It's the plate discipline's amazing for Isaac Paredes. So the batting average up at 267, I think that's actually kind of realistic as something like a 250 hitter, just like he was in 2023. I think that's coming back. The counting stats aren't quite where we want them to be, but heck, the rest of that offense is probably going to start heating up soon too when they get Yordan Alvarez back. Isaac Paredes is just going to continue to be this vastly underrated player who has mastered an incredibly important skill.
We'll slide over to the middle infield and we'll head to the Arizona desert, where Diamondbacks shortstop Geraldo Perdomo is the largest riser this week. He's up 34 spots up to tier 9, ranked 81st. Scott, what do you see out of Perdomo that you like so much?
Well, I mean, if you've paid attention to Perdomo at all, he slaps the ball everywhere, rarely strikes out. He's walking more than ever right now, 14.5% walk rate, tons of balls in play. He's actually like a top 20 player, basically in most formats right now. And like, not just hitter, he's been a top 20 player. Even though he bats like near the bottom of this lineup most of the time. Look, there were some concerns, especially from me, that they were going to find ways to take playing time away from Geraldo Perdomo. But then they gave him that contract extension. Look, they called up Jordan Lawler, and what's Jordan Lawler doing? He's sitting, 3 out of 5 games, 4 out of 6 games, right? They're just not going to take away Geraldo Perdomo's playing time. I think he's just going to be locked into this lineup. The lineup's been a little slow for the last week, but this team can really hit. What's not to like? He's not going to be a power hitter. Sure, but Perdomo is going to keep hitting for a very high average. He hit 273 last year. He's hitting over 300 right now. I think he settles in probably I think the projections are all way too low on batting average for this guy. I think he can hit 270, 280. And I think he ends the season with something like 15 home runs and 25 steals.
We'll move down to tier 10 and tier 11, where a couple of outfielders are making some noise, rising 22 and 23 spots respectively. At 101, it's the Los Angeles Angels outfielder Taylor Ward. And at 105, it's Miami Marlins outfielder Kyle Stowers. They kind of remind me of each other in that they're both, power hitting outfielders who are streaky, who are hot. One of them proven and one of them not so proven. What do you see out of Ward and Stowers that has caused you to raise them up the rankings this week?
This is like the second time we've seen Taylor Ward hit like 1 million home runs in 2 games. So he did it earlier this season where he hit, I think it was 5 home runs in 5 games. And now we've seen him hit, God, what is it now? Just in the month of May, Taylor Ward has got, let's see here, 9 home runs, right? Just this month. They're both guys. So Ward and Stowers are both guys who strike out more than you'd like. They're both on teams that just aren't very good. I do like Ward a bit more than Stowers, and I think they're actually going to end up trending in slightly opposite directions. What I don't know to do about Ward is that the fact when he slumps, it's so bad. It's like droppable bad. In fact, he probably was dropped in a lot of 10 and 12 team leagues because he was just so bad after that little 5 home run spurt. And it can be a struggle, but he makes contact in the zone fairly consistently. And we've seen him be a consistent producer before. Well, not consistent, but we've seen him go through a whole season and be someone worth rostering for a whole season. So that's the story on Taylor Ward. He might even move up a little bit. I've got a lot more concerns about Kyle Stowers. So I was willing to move him up because you might as well keep an eye on him. But we're not seeing the improvement in contact that I hoped for from Stowers. So I am hoping that Stowers is better than the guy he was traded over there with Connor Norby. And in terms of like hitting the ball hard, they're both very good at that. The problem is that Stowers has a bad zone contact rate, right? Right now it's 77.3%. You know, I've got that magic number of 80. When a guy's below 80, I have a lot of concerns about their ability to make contact consistently. And that just makes them even more streaky than you'd suspect. I think that home run fly ball rate is probably a little bit too high. Right now it's 23.8%. That's elite power hitter kind of fly ball rate. And sure, Stowers hits the ball hard, hits it fairly, hits it hard fairly regularly, but 20% is like Aaron Judge stuff, right? It's very hard to do that. So I think Stowers is more likely to fall down the list than move up it. But it's hard to ignore the fact that he's really been quite steady over the last several weeks. He's been a top like 40 hitter so far on the season. He's actually on quite a hitting streak. Yeah, sure. The strikeout's still high, but since May 12th, it actually ended today. He went over 4 today, but he put together something like a 10 or 12 game hitting streak. So there's something there, but again, 407 BABIP, that's not going to stay. That home run fly ball rate, that's not going to stay. But I do think he can settle somewhere where he stays ranked all season long. And that's the key there. This is, this ranking just outside the top 100, that's probably close to as high as he'll go, just because I think the volatility is going to be there unless that zone contact gets better. But in the meantime, I think even with the ups and downs, he can settle into that 110 to 130 range, whereas Taylor Ward probably has a step above that. If he can just be a little bit more consistent, you could see Taylor Ward jump to like 80 or even 70 or 60 like he was earlier in the season.
Well, that takes care of the guys who have gone up the rankings so far this week. We'll be back after this break where we discuss the guys who are tumbling down the rankings, our fallers, coming up next. All right, scrolling back up the list. Where do we start? There we go. Okay.
Probably the 3 guys who felt like 40 spots.
Yeah. We'll talk about those 3. Was that Adley, Santander, and
so Jorge Polanco, Michael Harris, Christian Campbell, they all fell 40 spots.
Oh yeah, Polanco.
It's hard to fall 40 spots when you're up higher because I'm a little too conservative. But when you're towards the back, like once you get to like around 100,
yeah, I mean, you're on your way out. Like it is what it is,
yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, do you want to talk about Vientos?
A little bit. He's just weird, right? Like, the plate discipline's great. Like he does hit the ball hard. It's just the performance isn't happening. And I think Polanco is one to just remind people that like what he did was really, really cool, but it's not the first time he had a hot streak like that. It won't be the last, and you don't need to hold him in between.
Cool. All right.
Well, I should find the person. Someone wrote an article about Christian Campbell, I think. Like
yes, like recently.
Which I haven't read yet. Okay, no. Kyle McCarthy, the adjustment period, looking into Christian Campbell's slump.
Yeah, I didn't read that yet either. Oh, man.
Looks like a solid article, though. A lot of visuals there that you like to see. But it generally, there's good news in there, but it's a nice little going deep.
Nice.
I managed that section once upon a time, actually.
Yeah, man.
Even though I like never wrote them. I almost never wrote going deeps, but I did manage the section for like 2 or 3 years.
Managing other freelance writers can be an adventure sometimes.
You basically find the ones that are writing a lot and you praise them endlessly to get them
Right?
to keep writing a lot. And then otherwise it was like the same 3 pieces of advice I gave like every time. I'm like, one, it was like, stop describing something that happened and just put a GIF or a video in. Just show me. I remember one dude, he actually works for like the Padres now. But he wrote this great article, but he spent like 2 paragraphs talking about a pitch sequence. And I'm like, my dude, just show it.
Yeah.
Like, you know how hard it is to describe a breaking ball? Like, you can do it, but it doesn't have the same punch.
Yeah, it started up there and then broke down here.
Yeah, basically, and it's like, just show it, man. Yeah. Like, baseball is great for short clips, right? Because the single events just aren't very long.
Right. Yeah, it works out. All right, let's jump in. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. I'm Brett Ford at Fade That Man on Twitter. He's Scott Chu, senior fantasy analyst. He writes the top 150 hitters list every week for Pitcher List. Scott, let's jump into some guys who are tumbling down your rankings this week, and we'll start in tier number 4. He's ranked 22nd overall, so he's still an elite hitter, but should we be concerned about Jackson Chourio? Is he just kind of a streaky guy? Maybe, somebody else who has a lot of tools? Am I out of line if I compare him to Luis Robert?
Oh, well, yeah. I don't know if I want to go that far yet. Chourio doesn't have the same explosive power and speed that Luis Robert has. And he also doesn't play for the White Sox, which is a huge, huge advantage. I think the things that have sort of bothered me a little bit for Chourio is that he didn't walk that much last season, and he's not really walking at all now. So that's a little bit of a problem. But he's not striking out a bunch, which is a good sign. He's still hitting the ball. Obviously the average exit velocity is down, but not so far down that I think he can't get some of that back. He's hitting a few too many fly balls, quite a few too many pop-ups. But it's a quality of contact problem, not a quantity of contact problem. So that's something that can get fixed. It can actually happen fairly fast. They're still letting him bat first or second in this lineup, which is not a great lineup, but it's good enough. This is an adjustment period. And there's going to be another guy we talk about going through an adjustment period. Young players go through adjustment periods. Chourio started slow his rookie season. I'm not comparing this to that necessarily because now there's a book on him and he's going to have to learn how to make additional adjustments. Chourio is, but I do think he'll break out of this. And I think you kind of just got to keep starting him as you go. Obviously by ranking him so high, I still think that's the case. I just think we have to start recalibrating our end of season expectations. I think we had hoped to see a guy who might threaten like 30-30. And now it's like, okay, I think he can maybe get past the 21 home runs and 22 stolen bases we saw last year, but maybe not by as much as I hoped.
Well, we'll stay in the outfield, but we'll move down to tier 8. Really, a lot of tier 8 happen to be guys who have fallen at least 9 spots. You have a couple outfielders here. There's Randy Arozarena and Cedric Mullins. There's the middle infielders in Altuve and Albies. There's Junior Caminero, third baseman, who's fallen 18 spots. Talk me through some of these ranking adjustments in tier 8. And I know there's probably different stories for each guy, but tell me about, a couple that you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, sure. So, with Randy Arozarena, I think it's just trying to get a sense of how good he can be in Seattle. He's been really hot for a bit. Now he's a bit colder. I think he's going to land somewhere between this like 60 to 80 range for most of the season, just to get a better sense of like what he can be. But there were times he flashed that maybe he could be a top 50 guy. I'm not sure I see it long-term anymore. Cedric Mullins falling. He may fall even farther as he gets cold and the rest of the Baltimore Orioles get healthy, but he's got a little bit more time to try to solidify his place in the lineup every day. So that'll be something kind of to keep an eye on as they get healthy again. Junior Caminero, man, I'm just so concerned about that ground ball rate. Caminero hitting over 50% ground balls. He's not finding the ball in the air. He's shown a little bit of flash the last couple of games or so, but I think what that it doesn't mean I don't think Caminero is in any danger of falling like outside the top 150 or probably even the top 100, but he may fall closer to 100 if he can't break out of this ground ball problem. That's the thing you're watching for him. With Altuve and Albies, neither of them were ever StatCast darlings, and the longer they go being cold, the further down they kind of fall, because you just wonder like how much longer can you sort of keep this house of cards together. Obviously, Altuve has a much longer track record. It's been a while since we've seen Ozzy Albies be good, and every time I look up his numbers, I'm reminded that it's been so long since we saw a good Ozzy Albies. So that can be that's a little troubling. And then also in this tier, Brian Reynolds, Anthony Santander, and Adley Rutschman. I think all of them need to be kept in certainly deeper formats. I think in the 10 and 12 team leagues that have 3 outfielders, the problem you're going to run into with Brian Reynolds and Anthony Santander is that they're dealing with injuries, and neither of them have hit the IL quite yet. So while they're healthy, man, they are tough to roster in those 3 outfield formats. I'd try to if I could, but again, it is very possible that someone like 1 tier below or so, or 2 tiers below is available. And as you get into tier really like 9 and 10, that's around the replacement level for a 10 and 12 team league with only 3 outfielders. So they're both kind of getting dangerously close to that mark. And then with Adley Rutschman, this dude is good. He's been terribly unlucky so far. We're going to see it turn around. And I understand how hard it's been to kind of wait for that. But yeah, I do think it's coming. It's just, I think the ceiling that I hoped for is just too far away right now to keep him inside the top 50 or anything like that. But the floor should be high enough by the end of the season that he's still worth a top 100 overall pick and still the type of catcher you lock in. But he's getting a lot closer to the 2 guys in the next tier who are moving up, which are Ohapi and Herrera. Right. So he's kind of getting close to this back end starter as opposed to lock in top end starter that we really want him to be. But I do think he has a chance to Adley Rutschman to move back in that direction.
Where did you go, Michael Harris? There he is. Okay. We'll move down to tier 11, where we've got a handful of guys who have really fallen 30 or more spots. 3 of our biggest fallers of the week in Mark Vientos, down 34 spots. He's at 112. And then we have Boston Red Sox second baseman Christian Campbell down 42 spots at 117. And Atlanta Braves outfielder Michael Harris down 45 spots at 122. Talk me through those handful of guys that have fallen like crazy.
Man, if I told you coming into the season that Vientos was going to cut his strikeout rate by like 8.5 percentage points and raise his walk rate by almost 2 percentage points, you would have told me, wow, he must be a top 50 hitter. And it's just not there. The performance isn't there. He's not getting home runs. Like the quality of contact is still pretty good, but the barrel rate's not. A lot of that just coming from, it's weird because like his ground ball and fly ball rates are like pretty much the same. And yeah, the home run fly ball rate for Vientos is probably too high. The biggest thing that's happening is he's not pulling the ball, right? So when you're hitting up, when you're hitting fly balls and you're not pulling them, they're probably outs, especially when you play for the Mets, right? So a lot of balls going to center, and quite a few of those are balls in the air. So that's a problem for Vientos. He's very close though, because if he starts pulling the ball just a little bit more of those balls leave the yard. The thing keeping him kind of on the list a little bit above replacement level is the fact that Vientos is a third baseman. And I know I've already said it several times. That is a tough position to refill, especially when you get into the leagues that have a corner infield spot in addition to that third base spot. So I think he's worth trying to hold on to. He did get back in the lineup today, which was a plus, got himself a hit. So hopefully he's over that abdomen injury he was dealing with, but man, I get it. It's been very, very tough with Vientos, but he's going to be tough to drop just because there's not a ton of options out there. And he's been, in terms of like overall production, he's been a little bit better over the last month, but again, still not very good, but just enough signs of life that I'm probably holding on to Vientos where I can, just because, again, just not a lot of options right? It's the power that we're waiting for. The batting average has come back to where we expect. The OBP is up to where we want it to be. It's just, even in May, he's slugging 344, right? That's just not going to cut it. But I'm just waiting a little bit, because if he just gets that ball a little bit earlier, pulls that ball, we're going to start seeing the success that we're looking for. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, would you consider Vientos maybe a buy low in some formats?
Yeah. In shallow leagues, no, because I think he should be a buy free, right? Like, I think people are probably itching to cut him, and I would probably try to wait for that, or go for him for like a different streamer that you already had on the roster. So he's not really a buy low, maybe in like Dynasty, but again, folks aren't always so keen on selling low either. But you can kick the tires and see what's out there.
Christian Campbell, Michael Harris, and Seattle infielder Jorge Polanco have all fallen 40 or more spots. What's going on with each of those guys?
Yeah, so Jorge Polanco, I'll start with, because he's the easy one. He went on a ripping hot streak, and it was pretty cool. Even though he was dealing with this injury, he was just white hot, crushing the ball. And we'd seen Jorge Polanco do this before, and I was hesitant to raise him much higher than about 90, which is where I had him. And I said, look, we've seen him do this before, and it didn't last that long. Now, if it lasts a little longer, there's going to be something to maybe hold on to there. He's eligible at second and third. It was worth sort of riding the wave, but Polanco's really fallen off. He looks a lot more like the guy we saw last year, which is barely roster worthy in 12 teamers. So Polanco falls quite a bit, who's now a sort of replacement level second or third baseman. With Christian Campbell, I would actually recommend you check out the article that just kind of went up on the site by Jack McCarthy. It's a really cool piece just on the adjustment period that Christian Campbell's going through. It's a difficult thing to be a young hitter in the major leagues. And the article does a nice job kind of showing you some of the things that are going on as he tries to adjust. What I love seeing, even though I dropped him 42 spots, the reason he doesn't fall even farther than that, Campbell, is because the Red Sox seem committed to keeping him in the lineup. One, I don't think they have a lot of choice now with Bregman gone. But number two, they're still letting him be in the lineup. They're still letting him hit fairly high in the order. They're definitely, he didn't play that well in spring, and they still put him in the lineup, right? They still gave him a spot on the roster. They're committed to letting him work this out in the major leagues. I think it can happen. It's just going to be a matter of time. And then with Michael Harris, I mean, I think I've said it before too. He's been a lot more average or worse than above average the last two seasons. And in the outfield, that's just not going to cut it anymore, right? There's too many options. So he now falls basically at replacement level for outfield. I'm not saying you have to swap him out. He's stolen a couple bases lately. He's been mildly useful, but there's a decent chance that some of these other guys are available in your league, and you might as well go scoop them. Like Ezekiel Tovar, even though they're about to go on the road for quite a long time, 3 straight series. I've been interested in what he's doing. I rank him higher than Michael Harris the second, and it wasn't a fluke or an oversight. I just think, Tovar has really cut the strikeout rate down. He's doing a lot of things we wanted him to do. And he's one of the few guys in this Rockies lineup that I'm willing to start even when they're on the road. So, Kyle Stowers still probably isn't probably still out there, but there's options, and just Harris hasn't done enough to show that he's worth just holding on to for dear life.
Well, that covers the list of 150 hitters this week. Scott, is there anybody on the taxi squad that you would think is worth mentioning this week?
Well, the guy I didn't put on the taxi squad that I almost did, and I'm glad I didn't, is Nick Kurtz, because as soon as I moved him down to the bottom of the list, he went and hit a bunch of home runs finally. So Nick Kurtz probably moving up. He'll be one of the higher risers, even though I still have a lot of concerns about the contact ability for Kurtz. And how often he makes contact in the zone. We've seen that zone contact rise a little bit. I think, there could be something there. So he'll get a chance to move back up the list. I added a new feature to the taxi squad where I put some of the lines in bold, just to sort of call out guys either that got moved in recently or who, maybe got moved out of the regular list recently, or who, just sort of are guys that are worth noting. I will say, Jordan Lawler is a cautionary tale. Right before they called him up, we had said, hey, there's just no path to playing time. He gets called up and everyone's like, oh, I thought you guys said there's no path to playing time. Unfortunately, there isn't a path to playing time. for Jordan Lawler. So sometimes the analysis is right, and teams will call up a guy not to play him every day. I know it seems like a bad idea because it probably is, but that's what they'll do. Other guys to kind of point out, Addison Barger has been interesting, right? Hits the ball hard. He's, hopefully not going to be stuck in a platoon for too long, but, someone worth a flyer if you need that third baseman. Third base has been a tough spot. He almost made it into the list. Jose Caballero has been stealing a bunch of bases. He should get a little bit more playing time. Not a ton of it, but he's getting some decent amount of playing time now. So if you're desperate for steals, that's one. Marcus Semien, if you're still rostering Marcus Semien, I'm sorry, right? Like, I'm sorry. There's my comment in the taxi squad is nothing about putting Marcus Semien in the taxi squad gives me joy, but really since about August of last year, there's been nothing to hang your hat on for Marcus Semien. The dude's got a ton of mileage on his body. He's played basically every day, and that volume was a huge advantage, but now he's hitting like ninth. So there's not even runs, right? And now his volume is that of a mortal man. Because you're batting ninth, you lose a significant number of plate appearances. I think we're finally going to see a season where Marcus Semien does not get to 700 plate appearances, which is a bummer. And without that volume, there's not a whole lot left to hang your hat on. So with Semien, I mean, I've been calling him droppable for several weeks now, but definitely now. Even in, honestly, in 15 teamers, I'm looking at the wire and letting him go. And I'm not even sure he'd get a big bid the following week.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Marcus, I mean, it took about 1 million miles of wear on those tires to finally break this man down. An incredible career. You're really like it's probably as close to Cal Ripken in terms of durability that we're going to see. He's got basically over the last 5 seasons combined, he basically has like a whole extra 130 games of plate appearances compared to everybody else. It's truly amazing, but it's a lot of tread on those tires. Well, sorry, there's not a lot of tread. He's used up a lot of tread to go through all those games and all those plate appearances.
Well, Scott, we've used up a lot of tread in our podcast this evening. We've gone a little bit over time, but that's all right. We'll have a little bit of bonus content for our listeners this week. That does it for Hacks and Jacks. I'm Brett Ford. He's Scott Chu. Scott, what are the Tigers doing this week?
Basking in the glory that is Tarek Skubal. Are you kidding me? The most strikeouts ever in a Maddox. That's a complete game with less than 100 pitches, 13 strikeouts. Of course, just slammed the door on it. 102.6 miles an hour, round that up to 103 on the very last pitch. Stone cold. If you don't love Tarek Skubal, I don't know what the heck's wrong with you. That dude is just so much fun to watch. And no walks. 9 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts, no walks, 94 pitches to get through it. And he only used his breaking ball like 10 times, right? Like, it was fastballs, changeups, and sinkers. It was all he needed to just mow down the Guardians. Tarek Skubal, I mean, he's the favorite for the Cy Young again. He's the best. I mean, he's the best left-handed pitcher in baseball. He's probably the best pitcher in baseball, period. Even with Jacob deGrom looking like his old self, man, Scoobs is just a dog.
How dare you talk about pitchers on Hacks and Jacks?
I'll talk about Tarek Skubal whenever I want, Brett.
That's my dude, nerds.
That's my dude. Love Tarek Skubal. Shout out Shelly Verstrate. Got me in on the ground floor when he was in Double-A, gunning guys down. She's like, he was like, drafted in one of the later rounds, but man, he looks just as good as these other 2 prospects, and Matt Manning and Casey Mize, who were both highly regarded at the time. She's like, man, he might be real good. And he had this big old leg kick, a funny name, and Tarek Skubal. It was everything I needed during those dark days of Tigers baseball to latch onto. And so seeing him, get past this weakness he had of just leaving balls right over the middle of the plate. Once he broke himself out of that, I mean, the sky was the limit, and here we are.
Well, beautiful, man. I hope that the Orioles have some ace up their sleeve somewhere in their organization. I'm not counting on it, but we could really use the help these days.
They sure as heck ain't going to sign one. They just don't seem interested in making their team better. So,
yeah. We'll end with that. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Hacks and Jacks. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, the Orioles are so bad. Hey, we split a series with the Red Sox. Yeah. We
Woo!
won 2 games in a row.
Didn't lose a series.
That's called a winning streak.
No matter how bad they are, they keep hanging their hat on the fact that they're not the Rockies. Although I will say
they're trying really hard.
They are the White Sox.
I was going to say, look at their run differential. Like they've got to be close.
Well, like not to the Rockies.
I mean,
the Rockies have 9 wins, my guy. They have 9. It is May 25th. The Rockies have 9 wins. They are the worst organization in baseball.
Okay, yeah, I was wrong. Okay.
They have 44 losses.
The Orioles have the second worst run differential in the major leagues to the Rockies. So it's close in that regard. The Orioles are at -95. The Rockies are at -171.
Yeah, not that close, is it? Not that close. They are so bad.
Just eliminate the context and it's fine. You know what I mean? Like
that was why I went on that rant last week. These guys are miserable. It's a miserable organization.
Yeah, it's rough.
There's no light at the end of the day. They just need to fire everybody.
No, starting from the very tippity top.
Yeah. The only thing going for them is that Coors Field is a cool place to play baseball.
Coors Field is really nice. We went to a game out there a couple summers ago. It's really nice.
Yeah, too bad it's a fucking shit show of a team.
Yeah, that's fair. Hey, it's officially after dark. All right, buddy. I will I'll catch you next week. Actually next week I may have to, we'll see. I'm traveling. My sister's having her like bridal shower and baby shower next Sunday in Maryland. So I will be traveling. I'm going to try to get back for 9 o'clock, but we'll see how it goes.
No big deal. Just keep me in the loop.
All right. You got it, buddy.
Cool.
Take care. Have a good week.
You too, man. See ya.
See ya.